Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 5th episode of the Torah Visuals podcast. Today's sponsor is Wines by Joseph. He has a very nice bottle of wine from the Gush Etzion winery in the Judean Hills. And we're going to make a bracha to bring God into this for bringing with us. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam b'ei pri hagafen. I probably should have let it breathe a little more, but L'chaim L'vracha podcast. We're here to learn Torah. So, to lead up to where are we holding right now in episode 5, so the Alter Rebbe started us on a journey. We want to explain that everything is God. There's only one entity in the entire creation, the Lord, Hashem. His one essence is all that is, us. We all exist inside of that essence. And that's the purpose of Shar Yichud Ve'emunah, and that's what we're trying to explain here. So the Alter Rebbe started off as a quote from the Baal Shem Tov that you speak, God speaks. He says, let there be light, let there be waters separating, let there be man. And when he says these things, they come into being. But not once, but actually presently, Hashem has to be speaking these words for it to exist. Now, once that's the case, that's a statement that David HaMelech says in Tehillim, and the Baal Shem Tov speaks about it. Now the Alter Rebbe takes it a step further. He says, okay, so that's the premise, that Hashem's words are currently energizing the world. So what that means is that he's coordinating the world. He's not just giving chayas and energy and power to it, but if he's the substance of this world and the energizing force behind it, and every little interaction from every molecule and every person and every wind to every leaf, then that means that he's not just energizing it, but he is actually coordinating their interactions. And if that is the case, so you see he's going on a logical process. First, there's the letters, God speaking. Then he's coordinating everything. So if that's the case, then we are batal. Batal means that you don't exist. If I'm here, but everything that I'm doing is being controlled by someone else, something else, then I'm not really here. Think about like a puppeteer. You have a puppeteer holding his hand inside of a puppet, and the puppet singing and dancing and running and coming. Is the puppet something, someone that you could talk to? No, there's a puppeteer behind him. The puppet doesn't actually have its ownness. So us as well, if God is our substance and he's coordinating everything, then we don't exist. So now comes the obvious question is, yeah, I do. Tell me I don't exist. I see this book, I see the laptop, I'm here, this is the wine, it's delightful. What do you mean I don't exist? How's that possible? So comes episode 5, Alter Rebbe in Perek Daled, and he says, how does this happen? Is because God shields himself. He has a mask. He has the Shem Elokim, the name of God, that when he is called by Elokim, it's a mask and a guard and a shield around Shem Havaya, God, as he expresses himself as Shem Havaya. What are these two names? There's Havaya, is spelled literally a Yud, then you have a Hey, then you have a Vav, then you have a Hey. The Yud at the beginning of a word means in perpetuity. If I have a Yud, it means it is going on perpetually. And then the next, Hey Vav Hey, is Hoiva, means create. Hava, Hoiva, now, creation. So God creates in perpetuity. That's Havaya, the constant energizing force. Zzz, rah. Then you have Elokim. Elokim, if you take the words, the letters, Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Yud, Mem. We say Elokim because we don't want to be pronouncing God's name, but you have to use a Hey for this gematria, this numerical value to work. So Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Yud, and a Shlas Mem. And if you do the numerical value, it equals Ha-Teva, the nature. So you have God as Havaya, as the creative force, the energizer, the limitless, the... And then you have Elokim, which is nature, as the world seems to function as a natural phenomenon. Yes, the sun rises and sets because gravity and all the planets are being pulled because of the scientific formulas of gravity. And when the sun shines, photosynthesis, and we have trees growing, it all makes sense. It's nature. So that is two of God's names, Havaya, the energizer force, Elokim, the natural order of the world, as it goes over and sort of blocks and guides and masks Havaya's infinite power. Now he's bringing the sun for another example to teach us the interaction of Havaya and Elokim. Havaya is, let's compare it to the core of the sun. At the core of the sun, there is tremendous pressure and tremendous heat that it could take elements. It takes the helium that is found inside over there, and it compresses it till it makes new elements. And it's like a nuclear reactor. That's happening at the core. And it's so intense that if this was unshielded, it would be so hot and so bright that our world would be overwhelmed. But from the core, you move out to other layers of the sun. And as you move out, there's an area called a convection zone. The convection zone is a place that takes the gamma rays that are inside the core of the sun and it elongates them. Gamma rays are very tight, short wavelengths. It's all intense and strung and high energy. And as it goes through the convection zone, it gets elongated, more tame, more manageable. And then as it goes even beyond that into the photosphere, when it gets over there, so now it's even more relaxed and more calm. And then it could go out into space and it could send light that won't burn up our earth and will give the trees the nutrients it needs and our skin and the vitamin D and all the beautiful things that we love from the sun and give us life through the Eibishter's hands. So you see that the core is too hot. It has all these other layers that wrap it, and it doesn't just wrap it, they develop the light and they make it more manageable. So that is a very close approximation to what happens by Havaya and Elokim. Havaya is the energy, the ball of energy, the nuclear reactor at the center. And as it goes through those other layers wrapping it, it makes the light more manageable. It's a tzimtzum. It gets it more that when it leads off into space and finally comes down to the world, by the time godly energy enters this realm, it could enter me and I'm fine. Here I am. I'm not overwhelmed. I could exist. If God didn't go through those tzimtzumim, if he didn't have those layers wrapping up Havaya, then we wouldn't be able to exist. So that is what the question we're answering here is. We started off by saying that if everything is godly energy to the point where you don't exist, so why do you exist? We are here. I am here. So how does that happen? Because God is infinite. And when we say infinite, we mean in all the oxymoronic ways. You know, the classic philosophical question, could God create a stone so heavy that he can't lift? So oxymoron, either he can't create a rock that heavy and then you're limiting God, or he can't lift it and you're limiting God. The answer is both. God could create the rock that's too heavy to lift and then he can lift it. And both of those things can be true at once. How? God. And that's what we mean by him being unlimited, that he doesn't have to fit into that rational box. So God in his infinity is there's when we give the shevach to Hashem in Tehillim, it lists out the different praises that we say Hashem. L'cha Hashem hagdula v'hagvura v'hatiferes. The first three, we say to you, God, you have gedula as the greatness, gevura as the strength, Tiferes is the beauty. God's greatness is Havaya, is that energy that is beyond. And then the next one is his strength. Strength we compare to discipline, where I could limit myself, I could withhold myself. So yes, I could be infinite and I could withhold. So this idea of Hashem being the Gedula and the Gevura, that he's expansive and he could, gather it all in. So this is happening at the same time, and they're both infinitely unfathomable, that somehow God is infinite and he could create all these things, and at the same time he could mask that infinity and hide it away and make it appear that, well, it's not just appear, we'll get into that, but he can make it that I see myself as my own independent existence. I think that I need to eat and need to breathe and need to get paid, and that's how I get on in this world. Not because God is vivifying me. I need to take care of myself, and that's how I get on. So this idea that there's infinity and you don't exist, but at the same time, he can mask that and you could exist, that's God's infinity. And just as equally mind-boggling as it is that we can't fathom his infinity to create something out of nothing, neither can we fathom that once he does that, that creation can feel independent. And that's from his gvura, that's from his tzimtzum, that's from his holding it in. So that is more or less what we are trying to achieve with episode 5. And please let us know how we did on that. And now we're going to go into a couple of details that we see within the episode. So just one beautiful thing that we love playing with, you see the sunflower, and we're zoomed in at the beginning of the episode. We're zoomed in, showing God's infinity, and you see these intricate patterns, and this is like being at a microscopic level, which is fascinating, because if you look at this world, it seems all very physical and tangible, and I touch it and I understand it, and this world is going to be compared to Elokim, natural, I get it. And then if you get in it, so we're not talking about going out to some outer realm to meet spirituality. We're talking about get in, go close, look real close under a microscope at what's going on here, and all of a sudden your mind starts bending. You're like, whoa, okay. There's these interactions happening within this static-looking thing. There's bonds forming and breaking, and for all you know, there's a war of microbes going on right there, and they're slaughter. Who knows what's going on here? So as you get closer, you see God's infinity, and then as you zoom out, it looks like our world. So we had infinite, and then when you zoom out, it was the sunflower's finite. Love that trick. Shout out to the artist for making it beautiful. Shkayach. And now, this leads into a very interesting question of what it sounds like we're saying is that there seem to be sides of God. There seem to be multiple faces. You have Shem Havaya, you have Shem Elokim, and each one of those represent a different sephirot. The sephirots, this is a whole massive thing that we just threw in there, but like we don't really give it all the weight. We talk about it a little bit. There's 10 sephirots, and we show the Eitz Chaim right in the middle. And actually, if you look close, you'll see that there are 10 sephirots. When you look at what we posted, you'll see the tree connected to 10 sephirots, but hovering above it, you will see Keser. And it's not connected, but there throughout the history of Kabbalah, there have been different opinions. The Ramak, for example, or Moshe Cordovero, he counted the 10 spheres starting from Keser. Keser, Chachma, Bina, Chesed, Gvur, Tiferes, Netzach, Yisod, Malchus. Came the Arizal, and he separated Keser as a loftier. A Keser means crown. A crown goes above your head. I am a body. I'm comprised of a head and arms and shoulders and all this. Keser is a separate accessory, almost you want to call it, but it's higher, separate, above me. So that's how the Arizal interpreted it. And he included Das. Chachma, Bina, Das. And Das is a fascinating one because it connects between the Seichel and the Midas. We're not getting into that. But what we get into a little bit in this episode is the Chesed and the Gvura. And again, they correspond very well with Havaya and Elokim. Havaya, we said, is the energy going outward. Elokim masks and guards and restrains that. Same by Chesed. Chesed is to give, is love, is kindness. It's all of those things. It's beyond those things. It's not translated. We don't translate it over here. But it's all those ideas of givingness, of good-heartedness, of positive flow. If you could imagine like a plus sign and a minus sign, this is plus. It gives, it flows. And Gvura is strength, is discipline. It withholds. So we zoom into that, and we show you how each one represents Havaya, Chesed, Gvura, Elokim, and then we show you that torus. And again, that was a fascinating conversation we had, myself, Shmuley Bell, and Reb Tzvi. And we were having a conversation about how could we show this interaction of Havaya and Elokim, because we want to very strongly portray that they're one thing. That's the crux of everything the Alter Rebbe is trying to achieve over here. There's no duplicity. There's no multiple sides. There's no like one aspect of God and another aspect. It's all one. We relate to it. We can't relate to God as one thing because we see difference in this world. This and this, they're two separate things. So there needs to be difference. It can't all be one. So God, when he relates to us, he has his face of chesed and his face of gvura and all that. But from him, it's all one. So we showed this torus shape. The torus, it happens all throughout the natural world. Around each person, there's an energy field that your heart I think it's centered around the heart. Your heart is giving off this frequency that they could literally measure, and they could show you your energy field, and it gives off an energy, and it takes in energy, and you are a part of the infinite universe. And that's how we connect to that frequency. And all things do it, and you can see an apple carries that shape, and everything does it. And that we thought would be a good way to show this interaction of Chesed and Gvura, of Havaya and Elokim, how Havaya is spreading and Elokim's pulling it in and masking it. And I don't think we did, to superimpose it over the sun. So you could see this effect happening at the solar level as well. So it brings in the mashal. But basically, this idea that we're trying to convey is that Havaya and Elokim, one entity, and it gives and it takes and it spreads and it masks and it limits and it's unlimited and limited all at once. And that's God's. To say that God's limitless is fantastic, but to say that he could also be limited is truly unlimited. If we said that he couldn't be here, how could infinite God be here? This is such a limited space. So you say, yeah, it doesn't make sense, and he's also here. He's unlimited and limited all at once. And that makes him truly unlimited. So then, what we do is we compare this to our own lives. Because all this, God, he creates everything. We are in the tselem of God. We are created in his image. So by us, we are one. At your core, the energizing force of you, your soul, the core of who you are, it's one being. It's pure, simple, one light. From there come all these other things. And don't think again that you have, some days you're very mean. Or not even some days. 1 hour, you'll be talking to your students or your kids, and you'll be disciplining them. You'll be, no, don't sit there. We don't do that. And then other days, a minute later, you're with your friends and you're having a good time and you're laughing and it's all great. So this, within ourselves, we see that we have all these different ways of being, but it all comes from one place. A way to describe that actually was, a mashal was given, look at light, look at a white light. Within light, it has the full spectrum of all the colors. If you shine it at a prism, a piece of glass at a nice triangular shape, it'll take that light and spread it. Mitama, all of a sudden, we have green, we have blue, you have red. Where'd that come from? It came from the light. When I look at the light, I don't see it, but it's in there. And it all comes from this one source. By us as well. We are soul, and it comes out as sometimes I'm nice. Sometimes I have to be a little rougher or more intense. Same by God. He is one entity. All is one. Sometimes he gets expressed as such, where the sun shines and the weather's great, and sometimes as such, where sickness and death, and they're all happening at once, and it's beautiful. So that's the idea that we're trying to convey in this whole episode, is that you have these two quote unquote sides of God operating simultaneously, and it boggles the mind because it can't fit. How could he be infinite here, but also he's masking himself? But that's what we're trying to portray. That this is where God's real infiniteness lies, and we hope that we nailed that. So please enjoy it and let us know how we did. We also ended off that episode with a bid as a fundraiser, because we did the first 5 episodes. Thank the good Lord. It's been a blessing and a pleasure to do. And the people we've been in touch with, and the team, and the peripheral team, and just all the people who interact, it's been an absolute pleasure. And it costs a lot of money. So we if you would feel so giving, and if you're enjoying this, and if you want to directly support Torah, not just Torah, but this is Chassidus, and it's Yefutu Ma'asecha Chutza. We're putting it on the internet to go to the farthest corners of the world. And you should see, we have responses and hits on our website from all over the globe, in the most interesting places. And we have people who are Jewish and never knew, or did know and left, or aren't Jewish and wanted to know, or had no clue and just happened upon it. It's incredible what is going on here. And we have so many more things we want to do. We want to do Likutei Amarim in the first half of Tanya in a similar style. We want to go through the Navi. We're giving the secrets, but we want to go through the Navi. Tell you the stories. We want to go through Halacha, get people up to date in the kitchen on Shabbos. Chevre, if you feel so giving, please. And it's all Meiser deductible because it's directly supporting Torah. It's all tax deductible because we're a 501c3. It's all business expense deductible. I'm sure Yosef's wines by Yosef, he's our sponsor today. I'm sure he's writing this off. So, Chevre, get involved. And any way you want to help us, we can make it simple and comfortable for you. Now, just to end, because we started this at the last podcast, but I figured it'll be a better move to end with the questions rather than start with the questions. I want to tackle the meat of our subject right away, but now we can hear the questions that were asked for us. Alan asked a very good question. He says, in episode 1, you say, where God re-enters as us. And that, he says, is a very tricky thing to say. How are you going to say that God is you? You can't say that. So, to be clear, first of all, we're not saying that I am God. You can't say that. You are not God. However, to say that God re-enters as us. First of all, I'm happy to admit if it's a little strong language, I admit, but I like it because it gets this conversation going. So, first of all, nothing else. Well, first of all, everything in this world, this leaf, this wine, everything is godly energy. So, on some form, it is a re-emergence of God, because like we discussed of the Tzimtzum, he vacates the premises and then he re-enters, and all this is the re-entry, including ourselves. However, we are even more than that, because it says by us and no other creation that we are B'Tselem Elokim, we are in the image of God. More than that even, we have a soul that was included inside of us, and that comes from God's breath. It says, V'nafachtabi, God blew into us. So everything in creation is God re-entering. We are in his image, and we take from him. It says in the beginning of Tanya that when somebody blows, it comes from deep inside of them. So to say that God re-enters as us, I posit, is a fine thing to say, but thank you for the question. It's a great question. One last question was, where does it say that speech is a tzimtzum? We said in episode 2 that if I have a thought in my head and I want it to go to you, it will lose some of the richness and color, because by me, I have a thought in my head and whoa, it makes so much sense and it connects in all the places. When I have to tell it to you, I need to sort of trim down this masterpiece in my mind and convey it to you in finite words, and it loses. So we said that in episode 2, and we were asked, where does it say it in Chassidus? So first of all, in Shar Yichud Emunah and Perek Tes, the Alter Rebbe says it very clearly, and he describes this idea of you have a soul, an infinite soul, and it gives rise to the 10 sephirot, which the sephirot, Chachma, is amazing, but it's like nothing to the essence of the soul. And then Chachma gives rise to the emotions, the midas. One twinge of your consciousness could give rise to infinite feelings. One feeling could give rise to infinite thoughts. One thought could give rise to infinite words. And that's the idea, that the words are so dependent on the thought that it's mamish batal to it. So it's a literal tzimtzum. That's all the questions for today. Guys, thank you so much for sticking with us. It's a pleasure. We look forward to seeing you by episode 6 of the videos of the podcast. And again, our sponsor, that's Wines by Joseph. Thank you so much. And if anybody else would like, Aliyul Nishmat's business, come and join us. L'chaim l'vracha, guys. We'll see you.